you found a role that you actually want, not a role you will settle for, but a role that genuinely fits where you're trying to go. You've spent time on the application. You've updated your CV. You wrote a cover letter that's considered and then you submitted it. And then nothing. No acknowledgement, no rejection, no feedback, just silence. If this has happened to you once, you probably blamed the market. But if it has been 3 or 4 times, you start to wonder whether something is wrong with your approach. And if it has been happening consistently over time, you may have reached a point where you genuinely do not know what you are doing wrong, because from where you are standing, you are doing everything right. In fact, I've had candidates tell me, I even used AI to align my CV and my cover letter to the job, and yet nothing. Let me tell you what's actually going on. Most senior professionals apply to what I call the surface of the role. They read the job description, they identify the requirements, then they align their CV to what they understand to be the requirements. They write a cover letter, the CV that demonstrates, those requirements. Then they submit. If they're feeling particularly, dedicated, they might even visit the website of the organization. That's the standard approach, and almost everyone does that. The problem is that the job description is not the job. A job description is a document that is usually written by someone inside an organization who is under pressure. It will go through HR for sign off. It will go through internal review. And by the time it reaches a job board, it's been sanitized into something that sounds like any other senior role in that function. The actual problem being hired for, what is broken inside the organization right now, what the hiring manager is genuinely worried about, what kind of person that they're actually trying to find. Almost none of that survives the process of writing the spec. And if you've been a line manager or been responsible for hiring before in your organization, you will get what I'm saying. So when you apply to the requirements in the job description, you're essentially responding to a document that typically doesn't fully represent what they need. And then there's the whole other conversation of whether they even know how to write a job description properly or not. So when you apply to the requirements in the job description, you're responding to a document that does not fully represent what they need. And the hiring manager reads your application and sees someone who looks capable, but has not demonstrated that they understand the real situation. Nothing about them, really speaks to the actual need. That's the gap. Not your experience, not your CV, not your LinkedIn profile. The gap is between what you are responding to and what they are actually trying to solve. The silence is not necessarily rejection. It's the sound of your application landing in a pile of other applications that all look the same because they were all written to the same sanitized job description. This problem hits senior professionals harder than anyone else for a very specific reason. At junior or mid-level, the job requirements on the job description are relatively literal. They want someone with 3 years of experience in X. You have 3 years of experience in X. The match is visible on the page. At a senior level, the requirements are almost always proxies for something else. When they say they want someone with strong stakeholder management, they mean they have a specific stakeholder problem and they need someone who has navigated exactly that kind of complexity before. When they say they want a transformation leader, they mean the program is already in trouble and they need someone who has been inside a failing program and made it move again. The job description gives you the proxy. It doesn't give you the real brief. It rarely ever does. And if you respond to the proxy, you look like every other strong candidate rather than the person who really understands their context and, understands what they're dealing with. Seniority makes this worse because the more experienced you are, the more your background requires interpretation. A 20-year career does not speak for itself on a 2-page CV. It doesn't. It needs to be decoded for this specific role in this organization at this specific moment. And most people do not do that work before they apply. So you may be asking, so what does it look like to apply properly? The thing that changes when you do what I've described above properly is significant, right? Before you write a single word of your application, you need to understand what the organization is actually trying to fix. You have looked at their financials. You have looked at their leadership narrative. You have looked at their technology footprint. You have looked at their hiring patterns. You know what stage of change they're in. You know what the hiring manager is likely dealing with internally. You know what the person who gets this role will need to have done before. Not just what the job description says, but what the actual situation demands. Then you build the picture of a specific type of person that they're looking for, not a generic senior professional, a specific archetype, the kind of operator who fits this situation at this organization. Once you have that profile clear, you then benchmark your own background yourself honestly. And you're not checking just to see if you meet the listed requirements. You're looking at it to understand where your experience is genuinely strong and where you are presenting it in the wrong language and where there are real gaps that you need to address. Then and only then do you rewrite your positioning for this specific role, your headline, your about section, your key experience bullets, your interview stance. Everything needs to be repositioned around what they actually need using only what you already have. That is what applying properly looks like. And the difference in response rates when you do this is not marginal. It's the difference between silence and a conversation. I've used this approach many times to push breakthroughs with my candidates. And from using it over time, I've built a tool that runs this entire process, for you in one session. I've called it Decode the Role, and it's part of my Decode the Job Search series. In the Decode the Role tool, you paste in the job description and your CV or LinkedIn profile, plus any other context about you that's relevant. The tool runs in 5 stages and it runs these stages automatically. And what it does is that it decodes the real problem behind the hire. It runs as an external intelligence sweep on the organization. It defines the winning profile for this specific role. It benchmarks your background against it honestly, and it rewrites your positioning using only what you have provided, what you already have. The whole process takes 2 to 3 minutes to run. And at the end, you get a downloadable brief, your reposition LinkedIn headline, your about section, your key experience bullets, your interview stance, and one differentiating question that will separate you from every other candidate who only read the description. It just costs just £47. It's a one-time purchase. It's not a subscription. I use it for as many roles as you need to. I've put a link to the tool I've put a link to the tool in the description. One thing that is important for me to say here, this tool is not for people who are mass applying. If you are applying to dozens of roles at once and hoping that something lands. If your strategy is volume, this is not the right tool. This tool is for people who are targeting a specific role that they genuinely want and they don't want to blow it. These are people who have been doing everything by the standard playbook and not getting responses. People who are ready to do the upstream thinking that most candidates don't do. This tool will work for you. Now, if that is you, the link is in the description. Go and have a look. And if this video has been useful, regardless of whether you buy anything, please share it with someone who is in an active search right now. They will thank you for it.